This is High School Not So Much a Musical, a podcast that takes you on a ride through the peaks and valleys of a high school journey. Here are your presenters, Nitin Jaladanki and Ayush Agarwal.
Okay, so hello everybody and welcome back to High School Not So Much a Musical. Today we are joined with Miss Rosa, who is the founder and CEO of EFour Enterprises, which stands for Empowering Entrepreneurs in Emerging Economies. So Miss Rosa, could you please give a quick overview about your life, how you came to starting EFour Enterprises, and just a general overview about yourself?
Sure. So again, I'm Donna Rosa, and the CEO stands for Chief Entrepreneurship Officer. And we do remote business coaching specifically for entrepreneurs in developing countries. And so our clients are usually organizations that provide or want to provide business support to small businesses in these countries. So for example, aid projects, donor organizations, NGOs, charities, business incubators, universities, government contractors, and so forth. And I've been working, and how I got here was I've been working in international development for about 20 years, but I spent most of my career in the corporate world. And, you know, at some point I just kind of looked at my, what am I doing? And I wanted to sort of give back. So I said, what can I do? And I realized that I had accumulated a lot of business knowledge that I could either die with it in my head or I could share it with people who need it most. So I transitioned from the corporate world into international development, which was not that easy. It took me a while. And I would go out into the field and work with these small businesses. There isn't a lot of support for them, but there were a few projects. And when I was working in the field, I noticed a couple of things. The first was that we were doing a lot of sort of one-off trainings, workshops, doing business plans for these small businesses, but it wasn't really helping them. And the reason was that a lot of times they were learning a lot of theory, but they really couldn't apply what they were learning to their businesses. It was too much of a stretch. They didn't have a business background or business education. And that was one thing. And the second was that, we hand them the business plan or we finish the workshop and everybody goes home and they didn't know what to do next. They needed more guidance. So I felt like it was kind of a waste of time. And the other thing that I saw was that these organizations were spending a lot of money sending me to these far-flung places. There was airfare and lodging and food and venue rentals in some cases, materials, not only for me, but for the participants. And I just sort of looked at it and I said, none of that stuff is adding any value to what we're doing. It's just overhead. So I thought, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so I started working on that. And the answer, of course, was technology. So, and this was pre-COVID, by the way. And I started to develop a way to do this over the internet with the entrepreneurs and take those costs out of it and provide more longer term support. So I opened EFour in January of 2020.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much for that introduction. I've really never heard of remote coaching before or remote business coaching before, but EFour seems really interesting. And I really like the name because it's so simple, EFour, but if you actually were to think about it, it's empowering entrepreneurs in emerging economies. It's a lot EFour is a really good, it's a really good short version of the name. So the next question I have for you is that, why? So the EFour believes that it's having business and entrepreneurship skills. It's a necessity, not a burning desire. So why do you think it's important that these companies, everything, they learn a lot, they learn and they acquire lots of business and entrepreneurship skills?
Yeah. So what's a necessity is the entrepreneurship, not so much the skill. Well, the skills are a necessity too, but let me back up a little bit and explain the entrepreneur situation in developing countries. So when you go to developing countries, the entrepreneurs fall along a continuum, like they do anywhere else. And so and it goes from, let's say, the very low income, the poorest of the people. And this could be like a smallholder farmer or a woman who is sewing crafts and selling things or selling vegetables. And it goes all the way up to, a techpreneur, an MBA grad that has a fantastic idea, some game-changing business idea. And there's everything in between. And in fact, India is the perfect example of that range of entrepreneur. I, though, work with the ones at the lower end, the micro enterprises. These are the ones that need the most help. These are the ones that don't have the business skills. They are sometimes called entrepreneurs of necessity because it's not their desire to have a business. And in some cases, it's kind of a little bit of a mark of shame that they have a business, and it means that they can't get a job somewhere. But there are no jobs in these rural places. So to them, it's a higher status to have a job with a corporation rather than being an entrepreneur. So it's a whole different, and that's changing now, but a lot of that still persists. And so, that's what the situation looks like now. Remote coaching, you're not the only one. This is very rare in the developing world, like in development agencies. And when I started this, they told me that it was never going to work. And so COVID changed that. I started doing it anyway, and everybody realized that you can certainly do anything you need to do, online. And so our program is called eSchool. It's like B-School, but for entrepreneurs. And we've got different programs. But what it is coaching over the internet in small groups of about 4 to 5 entrepreneurs over the course of weeks or months, depending on what the program is. And it's usually once a week sessions for about an hour, and then they get an assignment that they do during the week. Now, this has a lot of advantages over traditionally, what had been going on. First of all, it's really convenient for everybody involved. The entrepreneurs, as long as they have a computer and an internet connection, they can do this from wherever they are. And it fits into their busy schedule. So it's like 1 hour session, and then they have the week to do the assignment. So that's doable. And the other thing is that it's not, they aren't pulled away from their businesses or their families to go do a workshop somewhere. And so it fits into their lifestyle very easily, and it's convenient, like I said. But more importantly, they learn management skills in the context of their own business, because the assignments that I give them, they're working on an issue with their business. And it's not just, here's what marketing is. It's, what are their marketing issues or financial issues or so forth. And anybody learns better that way. And again, it's over time. It's not just a one-off thing and then I disappear. And they also get advice and feedback on their situations from an international business expert, which they normally wouldn't have access to. And it also makes for peer learning because, the entrepreneurs often can help each other. They're all facing the same types of issues. So there's that involved. Now, at the level that I'm working at, a lot of what I'm throwing at them is new information, and it's a lot for them to absorb. However, the way that we distinguish our business is the hand-holding. So we hold their hands through these difficult concepts. We make sure they understand it before they move on to the next thing. And they get it. And so it's sometimes a little difficult for them, but we pull them through. And then at the end, they feel really proud when they complete the programs. They've learned something, some business concepts they never knew before. And then they get a certificate of completion, which in developing countries, it's very important. And so, they like it. And then for the organization, there's lots of benefits too. So they can provide their entrepreneurs with all the benefits of one-to-one coaching. But that cost is spread over 4 to 5 people, 4 to 5 entrepreneurs, rather than just one-to-one. So that is very cost effective. And then, of course, we have taken out all the travel overhead. So it's very doable for organizations. And in addition, the staff can attend the sessions at no extra cost. So that's training for them, and it's capacity building for them, so they learn as well. And so we have standard programs on various topics. We have an overview. We have like one that focuses on marketing or financials, but we do a lot of custom programs where we see what the needs of the specific group are, and then we develop special programs from that. And then just besides the coaching, we have an even more cost-effective option for those that just need a business plan. And it's a business plan tool called EPlan, like B-Plan. And it's a DIY self-guided template, which it's got all the information that's needed in a business plan on the template. It asks questions to guide, the entrepreneur. They fill in the information, and then in the end, with one click, it generates their business plan, and it's modifiable and customizable, so they can change it any way they want. And that also includes a proprietary cloud-based financial software that is on the same principle. So they just fill in their numbers, and then they click, and it automatically generates their income statement, their balance sheet, and their cash flow statement. Just like that. They don't need any financial knowledge. They don't need to know what goes here and what goes there. They don't have to hire somebody. They can do it themselves. They attach that to the business plan, and they're good to go. And that's very inexpensive. It can be as low as a few dollars a month per entrepreneur. That's cancelable anytime. So when they finish the business plan, they can cancel it, and they're good to go. I should also mention that business plan template is specifically designed for developing country entrepreneurs. So it's rather a simple one. It's not a 40-page business plan like we see here. So that's just, I'm rambling a lot, so just stop me. But that's the kind of things, we think it's an innovative way to do it, making use of technology, taking out a lot of costs and giving better service.
Yeah, I think I found particularly interesting that like the software was just able to create income statements and this cost benefit analysis and all these like kind of difficult like documents, because one thing that I remember we talked about in the planning meeting was that I like how your company says empowering entrepreneurs, because that's exactly the name of the course in our school, which I'm currently taking. And in that course, one of the things that we like the first half of the year, because we're almost like halfway through the school year, the first thing that we learned about was financials, and that included making our own income statement. It included making like our startup cost list. And the income statement is very, very difficult because there's so many different aspects to it, and like mine was almost like 150 lines long in Excel, and then maybe 10 to 15 columns, because if you're trying to find out like the profitability of a company over, let's say, 10 years, you have to factor in so many different variables, such as like the amount of loan that you're taking out, your monthly loan payment, the interest that you're paying on your loan, your contribution margin, all like your financial ratios and stuff like that. So I find it really interesting that like this software is able to do all of that for them. So one question that I had was, do they eventually learn how to create all of these kind of income statements and stuff like that? Because obviously they can't have this software created for them for like if their company actually succeeds. So how exactly do they learn the skills that the software is doing for them?
Yeah. So in most cases, they can use that software. If they want to continue to pay the subscription fee, they can continue to use that software to generate whatever statements they want. So if they want to do that, they can just use the software. And so we don't teach them, what goes on an income statement, what goes on a balance sheet, and this and that. You got to remember, we're trying to keep it extremely simple for these entrepreneurs. And so what you're talking about would be more for a higher level entrepreneur. These entrepreneurs are, it's a little restaurant. It's, it's some small business, and they don't. And that what you're talking about would be overkill. So we don't teach them that. We just enable them to develop a business plan, and they can take that. And the reason they need that is so that they can think through what their business is going to be. But also, if they want to get financing, the business plan that this generates wouldn't be a very sophisticated business plan, but it would be enough for them to go to a bank and get a loan, to just show that they have, that they've thought through the business.
Definitely, yeah. I think that gives us a good understanding of, how to essentially create like the basic fundamental aspects of business, especially for those in like emerging economies who do not have access to like the same resources that we do. Like, for example, they might not be able to access the internet, so they can't just like search up, how to make an income statement. It's really necessary for like companies like EFour to go out and do it, like, and help them out with that process. And I kind of wanted to ask you, there's like this common international relations argument that, if you have companies like EFour going into emerging economies and helping them, then it kind of creates some sort of reliance where these companies and these individuals in the developing world, they don't really know how to lift themselves up because they're kind of relying on companies like EFour. Now, I don't agree with that, because I think, for example, as you mentioned, EFour is simply providing the framework for these companies to like lift themselves up, and then from there, they're kind of self-sufficient. But what would you say in response to like critics who argue, companies like EFour are kind of creating a reliance?
I totally hear you, and I've heard that argument, and I've made that argument. So I do agree that a lot of aid is just what you said. It's creating dependence. Now, there's more and more realization in the aid community that that's what they're doing. They went on for a long time and they just didn't realize that they were doing more harm than good. So that's changing now, and I'm seeing it change in lots of different areas. So I'm glad about that, because we want to teach them to fish. We don't want to give them fish. And so what we're trying to do is, particularly with the coaching, I'm looking at their business with them and saying, and trying to help them, give them the management skills so that they can run their own businesses. What about this? What about, who's your target market? So I'm teaching them how to run their own business so that they don't need me anymore.
Yeah, I definitely like see the need for that, because one of like the things that I commonly see is that having entrepreneurial skills, it's not just for starting a business. You kind of need it in every scenario that you're in, because even like the simple cost benefit analysis, if you're just like trying to figure out whether you should pick, like, let's say one phone, and you're trying to buy a phone, there's phone 1 and phone 2, is having the entrepreneurial skill of just knowing, I need it only for this amount of time, so do I really need to spend that amount of money? I think that's really important. And I like, one opinion question I have for you is, do you think that schools should like make business a required like core curriculum course? Because math and science and all that kind of stuff, it's great, but only if you're going to like a niche field of math and science will you actually really need it. But it's like, you're not going to use calculus in your everyday life. The greatest extent of math that you'll be able to use is like maybe calculating tax or like a tip in a restaurant. But business is something that you can use in every situation that you're in. So do you think that business should be integrated into like the core curriculum standards for schools across the US and even across the world?
You have hit on one of my rants. Yes. And again, I'm mostly, I think, around the world, but in particularly in developing countries, this is not taught to people. And for a lot of them are what's called informal businesses, meaning that they're not registered. They just kind of start selling something. And so if they had some skills to just figure out what's coming in and what's going out, that would go a long way. So yes, and the international development industry, again, is just starting to realize that they're trying to help small businesses. The way that you develop a country in large part is through small businesses. That's how countries get developed, in large part. And so, in trying to help them, they give them maybe some technical skills. They may even give them a little financial management, but what they're not doing enough of is giving them business skills. And this is something I'm always screaming about. You can give them the other two. If they don't know how to run a business, you're wasting your money, So I do think that a lot more focus needs to be on business skills. And it takes so little to make such a huge difference. That's what I like about this. It just showing them how to just the basics is all they really need, for their situations. And in most cases, it's financial skills that are lacking. It's almost always you'd be surprised. They don't know what's coming in and what's going out because they don't know how to keep records. I mean, it's just that basic. And I can give you example of that from one of my cases if you want.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of High School Not So Much a Musical. Make sure to tune in to part 2 of our conversation with Miss Rosa, where we talk to her about her first-person account of helping a failing business owner fix her financials and soar to greater heights. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. That's our show for today. Now roll the credits. High School Not So Much a Musical is hosted by Ayush Agarwal, Nitin Jaladanki, and Rishi Sinha. Narration by Samhit Padala. Music from Louis Luang Relaxation Cafe, Tune Pocket, and Infraction. If you like the show, please recommend it to your friends and family. Thank you so much